So if I'm completely distraught with symptoms and I can't go anywhere, maybe one of my values is just kind of looking after, being a kind person, and that applies to being kind to myself as well.
One of the things that comes up a lot with people that do experience chronic illness is that people constantly try to offer them advice, even though they have no idea what the person is going through. That happens a lot with UTI because someone may have had one once and antibiotics worked and then it never happened again. And you get people offering you advice to drink cranberry juice and other useless things like that. But it's very, it's very hard not to react when someone is like, oh, have you tried? And then insert something completely useless. Do you have any mechanisms to kind of steer a conversation in a direction that is helpful for both people?
Yeah, I think it is a really, really difficult one. And I remember getting told the cranberry juice one over and over, and it was so frustrating. But yeah, so I think, again, allowing your own reaction, so noticing it and understanding where it comes from, and the fact that it kind of feels unfair and ignorant to you in that moment, or whatever it feels to you. And so kind of looking after yourself in so much as you acknowledge that, because I think often we can if I make the distinction, so we can have that reaction and not really realize we're having that reaction, although obviously we're feeling it, but we're not kind of aware that we're then in that place, we're in that place of feeling irritated or whatever it might be, and then from then on we're on that track with that friend. So I think, again, acknowledging what's happened for you when they've broached that unhelpful advice, and 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 preemptively kind of understanding that when people do this, it is, although it doesn't feel like it, is because they are trying to help. It's an automatic thing for humans to do in every other situation outside of chronic illness. If you're saying you're moving house, they go, oh, you should get such and such, and oh, remember, my lawyer was crap, so think about this. So it comes from a almost an innate human place to collaborate. So I think kind of understanding that, but then also having your boundaries. So again, it comes down to that assertiveness, which is difficult, but I think and what I often say is testing out how you would say it in your own words. So it can be the same kind of sentiment and just role playing it with somebody that you feel comfortable to. And so it's not the first time you're trying out the words when it comes off the hoof somewhere unexpected, but you've had a chance to practice these words can be really helpful. So things along the lines of, oh, this is something that I've been dealing with for 2 years, and I've tried all the first line strategies, thank you. Thanks for your advice, but I've heard all of the suggestions, so perhaps we'd better talk about something else. Or actually, I prefer not to discuss the kind of different treatment strategies, because I tend to get a lot of information and it gets confusing, and I'm trying a particular thing at the moment. So however you would want to phrase it, and you can play around with it, but I think finding something that seems acceptable to you in terms of the words, and then literally saying it out loud, and you can role play it with a friend or with your pet or whoever, and then it comes a lot easier, when it comes up in conversation. The words aren't as choked because you have said them before. And also then when and if you're able to do that, log in the kind of outcome of that, because either it will go well, and that's good to log and store in the old memory bank, or there'll be something else that comes out of that, and then that's something to think about. Okay, if that happens again, what would how did I handle what happened, and was that okay? Or how can I problem solve that to kind of curtail that? But also, again, preemptively, you can say to people, friends and family, can we not talk about that? Because, as you know, it's an ongoing issue. I am trying lots of things. if I want your advice about it, I'll ask. But in the meantime, it just causes quite a lot of stress if you because I'm hearing lots of things from lots of different people and I can't try them all. So yeah, kind of permission to kind of bring that up. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be a conversation. You could say it in a text message and say, why you're requesting that.
I think something that people with chronic illness deal with a lot is that friends just stop reaching out to them. It's baffling to people that you can possibly have symptoms that last for this long if they haven't experienced something like that themselves. And they can tend to just stop talking to you altogether. And that can leave people feeling quite isolated and disconnected from their friends and even their family. I don't know if you have any insights into that or how to restart those conversations with people that just don't know what to say to you anymore.
Yeah, it's difficult because there's so many avenues to explore, but I think we think relationships are a bi-directional thing, aren't they? So somebody responds to you, you respond to that somebody, and vice versa. And I think people do really struggle when somebody's suffering because they don't know what to say, and that the go-to is to try and stop it or prevent someone from feeling bad. And that can be really, really invalidating and unhelpful. And then perhaps we respond from feeling invalidated and closed down, and then that might then make us irritable with them, and then they back off. So there's this complex interaction that can happen. And I suppose, again, I can't reiterate enough, communication from your side, as the one in the place of vulnerability is important, but it's so difficult when you're feeling vulnerable. So that's where I think, again, having that support, whether it's from a psychologist or somebody else like a mentor or a friend, is really important, so you can kind of problem solve and explore these issues, because sometimes it is working out. Okay, these friendships were valued friendships at one time, but now that I'm in this place, they're not going to be sustained because those people aren't going to be able to meet me where I am. And so it's kind of saying goodbye to some friendships sometimes, which is in itself a huge loss, and it impacts on our identity and the way we think about ourselves. So I think that's a huge thing to battle on your own. I would always advocate for kind of getting support when you're going through these things. But then with other people that you just feel like there's been a dissolution of the friendship, and it could be patched up, and they are fundamentally people that you feel on the same level with. It's just that your circumstances are making it difficult. I think, again, what's really important is telling people. It's the same with the relationship chat around sex. You're telling people how you're feeling and what you want. I want us to be closer, and I want to be able to enjoy our friendship, but I feel like this is a barrier, and this is how I feel in this situation, and I was wondering how you feel and what can we do so that we can still enjoy each other's company. So, and again, it's a collaboration. So they can say, well, when you're talking about these symptoms, and I feel trapped, I don't know what to do because I want to be able to help you and I can't, so that then I just close down because I feel like anything I'm going to say is going to upset you. Then you can talk about that. You can say, well, in that situation, why don't we just kind of switch gears and try and find some light relief together, or can we just talk about how I'm feeling, or whatever it might be. Let's try a combination of different things. So it's about reaching out and kind of being vulnerable, I suppose, with those people that you think it's worth being vulnerable with, and then trying to find a solution. But it's really difficult because I know that you are being vulnerable by doing that, and the worry is, what if they don't respond in the way that you want them to, and then you feel even worse, and that is really, really difficult. So it's kind of making sure that you've got the support network to hold you if that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's, you know, like your community that you can turn towards and kind of debrief, or whether that's, you know, another set of friends or your partner or your family, so that it doesn't feel completely isolating if there are
Mm-hmm.
some people that just aren't able to meet you. But again, just noticing will personalize that and make that about us suddenly being defective, or, you know, not a good enough friend to want to hang around. And it's trying to kind of invite in the alternative perspective. Actually
Mm-hmm.
doesn't say so much about you. What does it say about either just the friendship
Mm-hmm.
or the person that can't meet you where you are when you're asking? I mean, I would really question, would you want a friend that can't do that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important differentiation, and something that I've seen amongst friends of mine, and I've heard from other people that have chronic illness, that that has been a decision that they've had to make, because at some point it's tiring to pursue friendships that aren't going to give you something in return. So I have one kind of final set of questions, which is around the feeling of control. So when you go through something like recurrent UTI, you tend to feel that you lose control of everything. You can't control whether you can attend a social gathering. You can't control whether you'll get symptoms after sex. A lot of people have to miss work, as you mentioned earlier. Um, but then you also mentioned documenting times when the symptoms don't happen. And I found from my own journey, it was really helpful to get very detailed in documenting what was going on. It felt like it gave me some kind of control, even if it didn't actually have an outcome on my symptoms. I felt like I had data to base something on, and I could monitor it, and it was something I could be proactive about. Are there other tools that you think can give that sense of control to people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think um I do think, you know, we do need as humans, you know, some sense of
Mm-hmm.
control. And so, but we also need that flexibility of tolerating the areas that we, you know, when we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, balancing the two. One thing that I do at the beginning of um, working with people often is asking people to identify their values, what they find, what's important to them in the different areas of life,
Mm-hmm.
which is like an acceptance commitment therapy technique. And so there's a really nice exercise where you picture yourself at 90 years old, and not based on the current circumstance, but what you would like it to be. So you're 90 years old, it's your birthday party, and somebody is talking about you, how you lived your life, and, you know, what you were like as a person, what you are like as a person. And it's kind of identifying what you would want them to say, about how you lived your life, what was important to you, what kind of person you are. And you can look at that in different areas. So like relationships, work, spirituality, whether that's to do with religion or whether that's, you know, just enjoying nature or whatever it would be. So there's a couple of different categories that you can look at for different areas of life, and jotting them down. So, you know, for example, it's important to be fulfilled by my work.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to, you know, be a kind, empathetic friend, you know, etc., etc. And then having um, a list of ways that you can fulfill those values, and they can be, you know, longer term goals, medium term goals. They can be literally just activities.
Mm-hmm.
um, and what you want is a nice spread of things that you can do, you know, when you're feeling a bit better, when you're feeling, you know, a bit depleted, and when you're feeling completely depleted, so that, you know, you're always able to exert some control on living in like a
Mm-hmm.
valued life. So if I'm completely distraught with symptoms and I can't go anywhere, um maybe one of my values is just kind of looking after, you know, being a kind person, and that applies to
Mm-hmm.
being kind to myself as well. So rather than telling myself off in the toilet and, you know, shouting at my own body, maybe it's, oh my gosh, you're feeling awful right now, what can you do to comfort yourself? Let's do that. And that, you know, subscribes to your values. And then to that degree, you know, you have an area, you have a sense of control. It's just diminished to what we would usually want it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
um so I think, you know, having a good idea of all of these different options. And the reason that I say to do it kind of before, in a kind of preparatory way, is because when we are suffering and when we are kind of depleted and our capacity is just reduced because of
Mm-hmm.
our physical sensation and our emotions. We can't think that flexibly. I mean, even if I'm just stressed one day, and I've got a bazillion things going through our mind, it's really hard for me to step back and go, oh, instead I'll do this. I need to kind of have some idea of these are the things that I usually do, either from repetition or from having written it down at the beginning of the week or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Okay, I'll switch to this now. So I think that can be really helpful to try and get that sense of ownership.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the approach of the values-based kind of behavior, because it does allow you
Yeah.
to hold on to something that makes you feel like yourself. And I think that you really lose that when you get stuck in the repetitive symptoms and trying to figure that out. You can lose focus of all
Yeah.
those other things.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And completely understandably, because
Mm.
all of this is really automatized. You're having a really distressing physical experience, your brain just wants to problem solve, but
Mhm.
it just trips us up in that process. So yeah, creating these practices where we just interrupt that is really key.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. Well, that's all the questions that we had from our community for today, but I assume that we'll be talking to you more in the future because we continually get
Yeah.
more questions on this topic. So I wanted to thank you again for spending time with us to answer the questions.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks so much. They were great questions.